funny Caribbean, usually tranquil island?
I think that one has to distinguish two clear things. Firstly, the city of Kingston, like many cities with problems of unemployment and poverty, has always had a tendency to violence of the kind that you would find certain in many North American cities, set and off balance and that sort of thing. And definitely, therefore, there is a political element has crept into the situation.
Well, why would the opposition party, I presume you're referring to the opposition party, there are only two parties running,
Yes.
and why would they go to tactics of that nature? Don't you think it would harm them more than do them any good?
Well, I think that the whole thing, you see, has been, I think, rather cleverly managed, in that our political tradition has always involved, again, a very marginal element of violence, although it used to be in the old days just fist fights and the occasional brick and things of that sort. And recently what has happened, as I say, is to introduce into this, this tendency a certain element that I think is borrowed from the underworld. And I think this has been done by certain elements quite deliberately to cause a certain panic in the society, to give the impression that the government's not really in control. And of course, sometimes, as happens when the violence starts on one side, you get reaction from the other side. So in the end, you get a confused situation in which the average citizen may think, well, it just seems to be both of them at each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that one gets a cloak under which really to work the plan.
In driving around Kingston, we noticed a lot of signs saying Castro go home or CIA go home. There seems to be a Cuban-American involvement in this. Now, how much influence do these countries have on this political scene at this time?
They don't, neither country has any general influence in the Jamaican political scene. What has happened is that because the Jamaican government has had a policy of friendly relations with Cuba, very like the Canadian government, who have always had a tradition of friendly relations with Cuba. We have been charged by the more right-wing extremist elements of our opposition with all sorts of propaganda in what has really been an orchestrated communist smear tactic. Very unfair. We are not communist. We are very much a sort of social democrat group, democratic socialist group. And these smear tactics have been worked, which accounts for the Castro go home kind of slogan. And then, of course, there has been a certain tension in certain elements in the United States of America about our relations with Cuba, as indeed there is tension in America towards Canada's attitude towards Cuba, as you know, is not approved of by the State Department. And so somehow all this has got escalated into a series of charges and countercharges.
Well, is there some financial involvement, say, from the Cubans to your government and from the Americans to the opposition?
No. Well, I can't speak for the Americans with the opposition. There's no financial involvement between the Cubans and us, none whatsoever.
The Cubans are investing here, though. They're like building a school.
Well, that really was a gesture of solidarity. It's very much a, you know, there's a new thing emerging in the Third World, where Third World countries often do things for each other on a cooperative basis in a manner that I think is quite new in world experience and very interesting. We, for instance, are helping them with no charge at all with some things that we think we are quite good at, like tourism. We send teams for no charge to help them organize their new tourist industry. And also we have been one of the countries here who has, I think, shown courage in standing up for Cuba's right to be accepted as a normal part of the Latin American family. And I think that they appreciate this, and as a gesture of solidarity, offered to build this school as a sort of reciprocal gesture, which of course became a subject of propaganda.
Yes, why would they be so touchy, though, for people to take pictures of a project like that?
Well, you see, because they have been, the fact that they're building this school has been the subject of a lot of unfavorable comment in the American press. Right-wing elements in Jamaica have been very nasty about it. And they, after all, you know, have a very unfortunate experience with the CIA, as I'm sure you know. And they have had their own embassy Yes, in recent times, for example, their embassy has been attacked twice here by extremist right-wing elements. And I think that this tends to make them very sensitive and therefore touchy, as you said, touchy about the situation and very careful. And, you know, with the state of emergency on, they would be particularly, I think, cautious at this time.
What about Canadian investment in Jamaica? I understand it's about $300 million. And with the swing toward socialism or perhaps eventual nationalization, what sort of situation are they in now? Is it a precarious thing for them, or?
No, we have very good relations with Canadian capital generally in Jamaica. We've found them to be good corporate citizens. The banks, by and large, cooperate with the government very well. We really haven't had any problems in that. And with one of your major investments, of course, which is the Alcan operation. Here, we, as you know, are in the middle of a major revision of our whole bauxite strategy, because this is our critical basic resource. It's the one really big thing we have going for us, apart from tourism. We have our people, we have bauxite, and we have tourism, and we have sugar. And our negotiations with the Alcan group to work out a new relationship between them and the Jamaica government are going very well, and I think are getting quite near to an amicable settlement.
Mm-hmm. One of the, I should have asked this along with the first part of the interview, but one of the reasons I got for the, if I may call it, terror and unrest here was the unemployment factor, and the fires and things that have been going on in a very poor area. Do you feel that perhaps it's because of these poor people and the unemployment rate that has...
No, absolutely not. Absolutely nothing to do with it at all. What that does is to create a tense situation. But the actual terrorism is manipulated. And it really is very easy to demonstrate this, because some of the problems that we have had have been small groups of gunmen who operate from quite expensive Toyota cars. Now, when you own a Toyota car and the three of you work from that, I don't think you really are poor. But what the poverty does, as I say, is to create an atmosphere that can be exploited and manipulated by anybody who is ruthless. Where the unemployment is concerned, for example, with all the tremendous world inflationary pressures that have hit a little country like Jamaica so hard, and now with the economic recession that hit us so hard late last year and earlier this year, in spite of all that, we've actually reduced unemployment slightly. Not as much as we would have liked, but we have actually pulled it down a couple of percentage points.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that these poor people then in Trenchtown and other areas are being used?
Oh yes, as far as this is concerned, there's no question that they're being used. Mm-hmm. No question at all.
In regard to terrorism on the island then?
Well, it's not really terrorism on the island.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. What about the tourist situation?
No.
Is it safe for tourists?
Absolutely safe. It is, although it's a very unpleasant situation, it is our good luck, in a sense, that all of this has been restricted to the urban ghetto area, an area where we are pushing massive housing developments right now within our very limited resources. We really are working very hard and building thousands of houses a year now for the poor. But it's a huge backlog to overtake. It can't be overtaken in 3-5 years. It's a huge task. But the violence itself and the manipulation of it is very much a phenomenon in the western part of Lower Kingston, where the bad concentration of poverty is.
The emergency powers, politically, will it help you or harm you?
Well, we haven't really thought of it in those terms, because basically our objective in the state of emergency is to do with the state of the society, its confidence, and its economy. The violence was beginning to break the confidence of the Jamaican people in their own society, and therefore having a very bad effect on the economy. And we are determined by the use of this admittedly extreme measure to create an atmosphere in which the Jamaican people begin to recover their self-confidence in their society and begin, therefore, to act in a dynamic and buoyant way in their economy. That's really what our objectives are.
Is it working?
We think it's working very well. We're very pleased with the results.
What are your chances in the next election?
We'll win.
Are you sure about that?
Well, let me put it this way, to say that you're sure always sounds arrogant. What I really feel is that, we have done a tremendous amount for the poor, for the people, in spite of the pressures. We've got a very powerful organization. We've got very solid mass support. We're very strong among small farmers and groups of that sort up in the hinterland, actually the part of Jamaica the tourist doesn't get to see. And we feel that the people understand us and we understand the people.